This wasn't a risky trade or a short-term pivot. It was the Bruins identifying Fraser Minten as a future core player before Toronto realized what they were giving away. There are trades that explode across the hockey world like fireworks, the kind that dominate panels, melt down sports radio, and have fans refreshing Twitter every 10 seconds. And then there are the trades that slide across the ticker with a raised eyebrow, a shrug, and let's see how this plays out. The Brandon Carlo trade between the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2025 was firmly in that second category, at least at first. At the time, it looked like a classic hockey trade. Toronto got a proven, playoff-tested shutdown defenseman in Brandon Carlo. Boston got a package headlined by a young forward prospect in Fraser Minten, plus a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick. No generational names, no instant jersey sales spike, just pieces. Fast forward one season, though, and that reasonable trade looks a lot different. Because as the dust settles, as the games pile up, and as the numbers started telling a deeper story, one thing became painfully clear for Leafs fans and deliciously obvious for Bruins fans. Boston didn't just win the trade, they fleeced the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the biggest reason why is a player that wears the black and gold now, and that's Fraser Minten. Today, I'm going to tell you the full story, where Brandon Carlo was in his career before Boston moved him, how Bruins fans reacted, how Toronto viewed Fraser Minten at the time, how Boston's front office quietly targeted him, and why Minten has already blown past expectations in his first year with the Bruins. This isn't hindsight biased. This is asset management, development, and culture winning out. As always, thank you all for watching my videos. Please leave me a like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. It truly helps out the channel. Let's rewind. To understand why this trade happened and why it hurt emotionally for so many Bruins fans, you have to understand who Brandon Carlo was in Boston. Drafted in the second round in 2015, Carlo wasn't flashy. He never ran a power play, he didn't pile up goals or rack up assists. What he did night after night was absorb tough minutes, block shots, kill penalties, and make life miserable for opposing top six forwards. When he made camp out of his rookie season, a lot of people, it turned heads. I was shocked myself. For nearly a decade, Carlo embodied a very specific Bruins archetype. Big, defensively responsible, selfless, and brutal honest about his own limitations. He didn't try to be something he wasn't, and Bruins fans respected the hell out of that. By 2025, Carlo was at a crossroads, and so were the Boston Bruins. He was still effective, but the miles were adding up. The injuries, concussions, upper body issues, lingering wear and tear had started to define stretches of his seasons. His foot speed, never elite, was being tested more aggressively by faster, younger teams. From a roster building standpoint, the Bruins faced a dilemma. Carlo still had a real value around the league. His role was increasingly specialized. His contract, while fair, didn't age cleanly into Boston's evolving cap structure. Toronto, meanwhile, was desperate. The Leafs had been searching for a Carlo-type defenseman for years, someone who could handle playoff matchups, clear the crease, and stabilize chaos behind their high-octane forwards. To them, Brandon Carlo looked like that missing piece. To Boston's front office, he looked like a chance to cash in at the right moment. And what was the initial fan reaction? When the trade broke, Bruins Twitter did what Bruins Twitter always does. Some fans immediately hated. How do you trade Carlo to Toronto? Why are we helping the Leafs? This is better not be another future for present mistake. The emotional reaction was understandable. Carlo had been part of the Bruins' defensive identity for years. Trading him to a rival felt like betrayal, even if the logic made sense. The return didn't instantly calm anyone down either. Fraser Minten was known, but he wasn't a household name. A good prospect, sure, but not the kind that makes casual fans jump out of their seats. The first-round pick was appreciated. The fourth-round pick barely registered, and most of the attention fixated on one question. Is Minten actually good? At the time, the consensus was caution optimism at best. Did Fraser Minten even fit into Toronto's long-term plans? To really understand why this trade aged so poorly for Toronto, you have to understand how the Leafs viewed Fraser Minten before they moved him. Drafted in 2022, Minten quickly developed a reputation as a coach's dream. Smart, reliable, competitive. He wasn't projected as a superstar, but he was widely seen as a future middle stick center who could play in all situations. In Toronto's system, Minten was slotted behind bigger names, flashier prospects, higher draft picks, and players with more obvious offensive ceilings. Internally, he was viewed as a valuable but also movable. The Leafs believed they had a surplus down the middle. They believed their window was now. And they believed Brandon Carlo was that defensive stabilizer they'd been chasing for years. So when Boston asked for Minten at the centerpiece of the deal, Toronto hesitated, but ultimately agreed. The rumor was it was either Minten or Cowan. I think the Bruins kind of won this one. But how did the Bruins front office see Minten? While Toronto saw Minten as a strong supporting piece, Boston saw something else entirely. The Bruins front office, long known for valuing hockey IQ, two-way play, and competitiveness, reportedly zeroed in on Minten early in the trade discussions. This wasn't a throw-in. This was their target. Internally, the Bruins believed Minten had untapped offensive upside, elite defensive instincts for his age, the mental makeup to thrive in the demanding market. Most importantly, they believed his game translated perfectly to Boston Bruins hockey. This wasn't about flashy highlights. It was about habits. What was Minten's first impression in Boston? From the moment Fraser Minten arrived in Boston, the tone was different. Reports out of development camp described a player who asked questions constantly, who stayed late, who absorbed structure quickly. Coaches praised his positioning, his communication, and his willingness to do all the small things. By the time training camp rolled around, Minten wasn't just competing. He was forcing conversations. Should he start the year in the NHL? Heck, the Bruins even had him out at the end of last season to do the team pitcher. That told me a lot. Is he better defensively than some veterans? Does his skating look improved? For a fan base still uneasy about losing Carlo, Minten's early performance began to ease the sting. Now let's talk about the part the Leafs fans hate the most. Because when you strip away any reputation and look at performance, Fraser Minten didn't just meet expectations in Boston, he shattered them. From an analytical standpoint, Minten quickly established himself as one of the Bruins' most reliable young forwards. Strong positive shot attempts differential at 5-on-5. Consistently high expected goal share. Above average defensive zone retrieval success. In plain English, when Minten was on the ice, the Bruins controlled the play. He wasn't riding shotgun with stars either. He earned his results through positioning, anticipation, and relentless puck pressure. While raw numbers matter, what really fueled the hype around Minten were the comments coming from inside the room. Coaches repeatedly emphasized his maturity, how he read plays before they developed, how he supported defensemen low in the zone, and how rarely he made the same mistake twice. Marco Sturm, in particular, was frequently credited with helping refine Minten's offensive instincts. The message was simple. Trust your reads and don't shy away from attacking when the opportunity is there. Teammates praised his calmness under pressure and his willingness to do the dirty work without complaint. For a rookie, that's gold. And again, this is where the story gets uncomfortable for Leaf fans. Boston gave Minten structure, patience, and accountability. He wasn't asked to be a savior, he was asked to be reliable. Toronto, by contrast, needed immediate impact. Different environments, different expectations, different results. Minten's skill set, defensive awareness, puck support, responsible aggression, fits Boston's system like it was designed in a lab. Almost lost in the conversation is the fact that Boston didn't just get Minten. They also got a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick. That's organizational flexibility. That's future ammo. And it came at the cost of a defenseman whose best years were likely already behind him. Far too many teams in the NHL hang on to veterans. Boston actually did what we've been saying for years that teams do in the NHL, and they traded away their veteran core players and their leadership core to get better in the future. Here's the scary part. Fraser Minten is still getting better. His skating continues to improve. His confidence with the puck is growing. His offensive reads are faster and more decisive. Long-term, Minten projects as a reliable top 6 two-way center. A matchup nightmare for opposing stars. A core piece for Boston's next competitive window. Not bad for a secondary piece in a trade. The Bruins didn't gamble on potential. They recognized Fraser Minten as a core piece early, exploited Toronto's urgency, and turned a declining asset into the foundation of their next competitive window. In the end, the Brandon Carlo trade wasn't about disrespecting a Bruins mainstay. It was about timing, leverage, and understanding where the league and your own roster was heading next. Boston moved Brandon Carlo at the exact moment his reputation around the league still outweighed the reality of his long-term trajectory. They recognized while Carlo was still a useful, honest NHL defenseman, his role was becoming narrower. His durability was a growing concern. And his value would never be higher to a team like Toronto that was desperate for playoff stability. At the same time, the Bruins identified Fraser Minten as the kind of player winning organizations are built around. Not flashy, not loud, but relentlessly effective. They bet on hockey sense over highlight reels. They bet on habits over hype. They trusted their development system to turn strong foundation into a core piece. 1 year later, that bet has already paid off. Minten isn't just holding his own. He's driving play, earning trust in all situations, and showing signs of becoming exactly the type of two-way center Boston has leaned on for decades. When you add in the first-round pick and the fourth-round pick, assets that extend the Bruins' competitive window even further, the gap between what Boston gave up and what they received becomes impossible to ignore. The trade wasn't a gamble. It was a calculated win. Years from now, when Fraser Minten is logging heavy minutes, shutting down top lines, and producing at both ends of the ice, this deal won't be remembered as a controversial or risky. It'll be remembered as one of those quiet moments where the Bruins front office simply outthought their biggest rival. That's not just winning a trade, that's defining it. If you're a Bruins fan, this is why you trust the process. If you're a Leafs fan, well, maybe skip this video. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. Let me know where you rank Fraser Minten among Boston's young core and whether this trade already belongs in Bruins lore. I'll see you next time.